Hey guys, it's Crypto Llama here, and today I talk with one of the devs of the Archmage bot service. As to not bore you guys and to keep this video at the shortest possible length, this is just a quick fire interview with some questions which I believe you guys will be interested in. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe button, jump into my community Discord in the video description below for all the giveaways, and thanks for watching. So first off, Almighty Melon, I love your name, even more so that it's all in caps lock, because we all know caps lock is cruise control for awesome. So thanks for taking the time out of your day to have a chat with me here and inform the community about what Archmage is. It's awesome to have you here.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here.
I'm just going to fire off some questions at you, which I believe are going to be important for the community. And let's see if we can just try and make it as condensed as possible. So for everyone watching, could you just tell us a bit about what Archmage is and who this product is targeted towards?
We're an automation service for Splinterlands. I think everyone here should know what Splinterlands is. And the word bot gets thrown around a lot. I actually prefer automation. I think automation's been going on for longer, since production lines and factories and a whole lot of history that we sort of mention in our white paper. Who are we targeted for? Well, we didn't really have that in mind when we made it. We just, in particular, we had individual players in mind, I suppose, who didn't have time to play the game. And a lot of them were people that we knew, including ourselves. And so we started this small service off to cater to those players. And we had an alpha, and that went slowly, and then we had a beta, and towards the end of our beta it really exploded. And words like premium have started to be thrown around, or boutique, or top shelf, and that's all very nice and we like it. But that's actually decided by the field. You know, we just made a hand finder, and particularly Proto, who's one of our devs, made a hand finder which was the best that we could make, and it happens that that's above par on the whole, has a pretty decent win rate. So those words have started to be thrown around because we're not catering to bot farms of 10,000 bots. We're catering to individual users, and we've got pretty solid selection when it comes to hands. And so as a consequence of that, some of these words have started to come up, and we're kind of trying to embrace them a little bit.
That's good.
But the other thing is that we're a community, and we're a community of players who are sort of standing backs to the wall against some criticism sometimes when it comes to what we do, which is just to have a few games every hour playing in an automated fashion on our accounts.
And just on that as well, I think one thing I really love about how you're marketing the service is I'm utterly against large bot farms myself and their ability to extract other real human players' rewards from the ecosystem. That's why I identified so well with cryptocurrency in the first place and its decentralized benefits, precisely to get away from large corporations profiting from others, which is kind of similar to what large bot farms do. But the way you guys are doing it is a little bit different. Can you tell us more about your tokenomics and how you're distributing the Archmage token?
Well, it's one token per account, and we're distributing them at the rate that we can manage to take on new users. It was sort of modeled after a concert with a limited capacity venue. And so it's in a way we deserve a little bit of what's going on, which is the people are buying our concert tickets and kind of standing outside the venue and scalping a little bit. And that's not something that concert ticket people can avoid, and it's not something that we can completely avoid either. That doesn't necessarily mean, and I should state this, that I sort of look at automation in gaming as sort of like a weapon, and it depends on the person who's holding it a lot. I know that's a cliche when it comes to weapons, but like sometimes a weapon in the right hands is a good thing, and in the wrong hands it's a bad thing.
Yep, certainly.
And so even people who have large numbers of accounts, that doesn't necessarily mean that we're ruling out kind of collaborations with them in future, but they would need to participate in the community like we do. They would need to own cards on all those accounts so that they're not just bare spell books. They would need to participate in Discords and Twitch and YouTube. They would need to be in guilds and that kind of thing. So it's not the size of the number of accounts that you've got that bothers me. I have about 23 accounts myself, and a lot of people would consider that a farm. But it's more about what you're doing with them and how you're participating. 10,000 accounts that are just running on one computer, that's largely ignored, and it's doing nothing but selling all the assets. Like I've said it before, and I'll say it again, Splinterlands don't like that themselves, and I don't think anyone else does either.
Yep. And that just tends to devalue all the assets in the long run anyway. But did I hear that you turned away some people with large amounts of accounts? And
well, I'm not sure how serious they were, but we've had people come along and say, I have 10,000 accounts, will you run them?
Right.
And I think there are other services out there who might be taking on board those clients. People who have like $1 per account sort of thing might be actually getting 10 grand in pocket. I hope those people manage that money wisely, because they might be running a lot of accounts for an indefinite period with not much reward. I don't know, who can say?
Your interface is really extremely easy to use, which, so well done with that, by the way. But with the latest updates to the rewards coming, where players' ECR will be reduced substantially if below the 50% threshold, how do you think this will affect Archmage and also other botting services?
It doesn't affect me personally. It's almost like they made it for me, because I ran the majority of my accounts at 2 games per hour anyway, and if you run 2 games per hour, you end up at a pretty much static 50% ECR. And if you come from above, so if you start at 100, you'll actually never touch that 50%. You'll be at 50 point something if you just run only 2 games per hour in a steady fashion. So if you ran no more than 2 games per hour, nothing will change for you. Right. This is only penalising people who play heavily. In fact, it penalises humans who play heavily as well, I think.
One of the things that annoys me a little bit about that, yes, I understand how it's to curb the usage of bot farms and things like that, or extracting all those rewards. But me as a streamer, if I have to stream, for instance, and I'm under 50 or I'm at 50%, then I'm having to stream or play games. And I'm going to get that penalty even, by not doing anything exploitative, but I'm still going to get that penalty.
We've got it, as you probably know, on our bot, and a lot of people are coming in and saying, what do I do? And we just say, set it to 2 times per hour, and if you're worried, set a 50% ECR target, so our service will skip games if your ECR falls below 50%.
Cool. And what do you find your average win rate of the bot is? You obviously have a slew of data on the back end. Do you have any average win rate per league, and how do you find the bot works in Hive?
Variable. I couldn't even say, because you need to specify more. Do you mean in a certain league? Do you mean for a certain, because it's wildly variable per collection as well. You take a single card out of a collection and it changes the win rate. Right. We've got a message in our server which I wrote called push pull, which says something like every collection's got kind of a base rating. Like if you play a collection heavily, you'll end up at a flat line rating. So let's say you've got a good strong silver collection, you'll probably end up wherever you end up, 2100 or something. Yep. And that's kind of your rating for your collection, and it's fairly fixed. And also they've built the ECR system so that no matter how much you play, there's sort of a rubber band effect. So everyone regenerates the same amount of ECR, about 1.06% per hour or something like that. And that's your budget. Everyone's got that 1.06 to spend, and your collection's got a certain strength. And both those things are pretty static. Yep. Like you can push and pull as much as you want in terms of robbing from one season to pay for the next or whatever, but it's pretty static in the end.
Okay. Can you speak on further about how your bot decides to choose the lineups without, of course, divulging your secret sauce, so to speak?
Not really, because it's sort of proprietary knowledge, but we do have a company line, and it goes something like, we choose hands based on historical data.
Yep.
And that's pretty much all we say, and it's true, we've got quite a large history now that we've been collecting in terms of data, and we base our selection on that. Just how we base it, I'm not going to specify any further.
That's fine.
We've got a message in the server, it's actually !chicken. The question we get asked all the time is, why didn't the bot play a chicken in this hand? It would have been obvious just to play a chicken in this position, added at the beginning or the end or whatever. Yep. And that raises 2 issues. The first is that we do our selections based on historical data, and so it just means that the chicken wasn't in the history.
Right.
And the other thing it brings up is that at some aspects of this game, human beings and their intuition are better than code and logic. Because if you look at a 5 monster hand and you own a chicken or a fiend, A human being with 3 seconds can probably slot that chicken into that hand in a pretty efficient place using their intuition.
Right.
So if you've got a holy shield on the game, you might put it in the front so it soaks 2 hits. If you've got a snipe and the chicken's got no attack, you might put it in the second position to soak the snipe. If you suspect sneak, you might put it in the back, unless there's last stand, in which case you wouldn't put it in the back. And a human being can do that fast.
Yep.
But to actually express that in code logic is problematic.
Okay. Is there an element of machine learning, or does the bot learn from...
That comes down to your definition of machine learning.
Yep.
So because we are basing our selections on history, yes, it's learning from human beings. Whether it's specifically learning from itself, I'm not going to comment. I mean,
okay.
It sort of depends, like, on your definition of machine learning and artificial intelligence and how tight that is.
Yep.
People argue about that. There's pages and pages of people arguing about that.
No worries. We'll leave that there for the time being. As I mentioned, I'll try and make this as condensed as possible. So I was talking to Infidel 1258 and Jim a few days ago, and we had a question which we weren't too sure of, but perhaps you can clarify that for me. What are the future plans for Archmage, and do you have any information on how many users you've accumulated since its release? And what do you believe the total amount of tokens will be in perpetuity?
Everyone can see the total number of users on Hive Engine. So there are 200 alpha passes, 400 beta, and I'm not even sure what there are now. We just sold 50 today, another 50. So there would be 250 of the main token.
Yep.
So we're looking at about 850 users at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Every time we add users, we often reveal new issues with our sort of integration with Splinterlands. So we can't double our user base
Yep.
in an instant, ever. I don't think. I can't see that happening. But I don't make all the decisions. We're a team, and we make team-based decisions.
Yep.
But barring some sort of extreme like growth to the team and that kind of thing, then I can't see that sort of growth to the user base happening. We've got a couple of private users that help us with testing, but other than that, that's it. What you see is what you get on the tokenomics. In terms of the growth, yeah, it's really limited. Like I say, it's kind of to come back to the concert thing, it's like the limited capacity venue. We have to make sure we don't oversell, and because the main thing is ensuring that user experience, I think, for all of the team. The main thing is ensuring the user experience for the existing users as opposed to the people that want to be users, although we are concerned about them too.
Yeah.
But
so do you have a max total amount of tokens that you plan on distributing?
Well, there's 1 million that we could print.
Okay.
I mean, I can't see there ever being 1 million users to our service, but I wouldn't like to rule out that possibility completely. That'd be a nice problem to have. It'd be nice if there were 25 million Splinterlands players and 5 different bots, all with 1 million users at some point in the future.
Now, I wanted to talk about security and how Archmage manages the security with the prevalence of scams in cryptos. I personally understand how the different keys and the way that they use within the Hive ecosystem work. But for the viewers, can you tell us why you require an account's private posting key and how that will allow Archmage to interact with an individual's account?
To be clear, the posting key is quite weak.
Yep.
So off the top, I'm going to show my ignorance here, but I think it goes the weakest one's memo, and then posting, and then you've got active, and then there's a master password, and I'm forgetting one. It's just slipped my mind. Right. And so in terms of the strength of the password that you're handing over, the most malicious things that we could do with a posting key would be to combine or rent out your cards, which would be pretty annoying, but we have no desire to do that. And we could also hop onto your Hive blog, which a lot of Splinterlands users aren't even aware that they have, and we could post on your behalf some trollish spam on your Hive blog.
Okay.
But that's the worst damage that we can do. In terms of transferring assets out or voting for you or any of those things, those are impossible without an active key or stronger.
Yep.
And in terms of what we do for security, collaborate as best we can and point out each other's flaws. Sometimes we'll say things in a message which give out a little bit more information than we want to give out, and one of us will just point out to the other, hey, maybe that's not the best idea, just edit that message. Also, we just keep it within the team, and we have each other's backs basically in that respect. Yeah.
So I've got a bit of a hard question for you now, but I imagine because you work on the opposite side of the fence, you probably have quite a good perspective about this. So let's imagine a role reversal here and say that you were working for Splinterlands, for instance, instead of Archmage, and you wanted to mitigate the way that the bot farms extract rewards from the ecosystem. What features would you implement to try and neutralize larger bot farms?
No one feature is going to do it, and the only way to do it is to have constantly shifting goalposts.
Yep. And
the reason for that is a couple of things. One of them is things called, I think, an economics theorem called Goodhart's law, which says that for any kind of, whenever you use a measure of a system as a target, then basically you change the system and your target no longer works. I'm phrasing it badly, but what you can sum that up in is that when you set some goals for people, they're going to try to game those goals, and it'll no longer necessarily be profitable to do that because everyone will hop on board and do it. Basically, when you set like a set of goalposts like that in an economic sense, like people start to game the system and the goalposts. And the other thing is to do with kind of mathematical logic, and I won't rant on about this, but a guy called Kurt Gödel, who basically said that any logical system will have some flaws.
Yep.
And so those two things kind of put together mean that no matter what goals they set or measures or protections they put in place, people are going to find a way to get around those eventually to some degree. And so basically I think the best strategy for that is to just try to keep ahead of the game, and I think that's kind of what they're doing on the whole.
What do you think the future of Splinterlands is going to look like? A lot of people are worried that, you know, it's going to change from an enjoyable game to bot versus bots. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I do note that people were lamenting the loss of the bots in the early days of Modern. When the bots hadn't all converted over to Modern League, people were like, oh no, I'm having to wait for an opponent.
Yep.
This is horrible. Where are the bring back the bots? And also my opponent's really hard. They've thought a lot about this hand. I lose.
Yep.
And so, you know, there was a little bit of that going on, which is a little bit humorous. The other thing is, like, because we're basing our selections on history, a human being came up with that strategy first, and because a human being's got intuition to, like, if you look at Gary Kasparov versus Deep Blue in the chess world, and that's actually a world that I come from, is correspondence chess, where chess engines are legal and books and whatever else to inform your chess moves. But if you look at Deep Blue versus Kasparov, there's actually a famous game where he beat the IBM computer because he identified what we might call now an exploit in its code. He would do a certain pattern and quite got its code, you know, wrapped around that, and he won the game. And it's still very much possible against Archmage or Archmage, whatever you want to call it, or against any other Splinterlands spot, is to outdo it. Like, we see it all the time, and slowly learn from it.
So, lastly, how can users get their hands on Archmage, and how often are your releases, and what is the cost per token?
It's a little bit subject to change because we're trying to take on board the feedback of the community a little bit. We've had some criticism in terms of just about every way that we try to get these tokens out there. So the main way at the moment is from splex.gg, and we have a partnership with them.
Yep.
They run a rent golem service, which will automatically rent out your collection at the best prices continually. It's quite a useful service.
Yeah, it's amazing. I wish I had a better CP deck. I'd probably be using it myself.
Yeah, there's potential there, especially when you then rent in cards cheaply at the same time to play with. It's a sort of, I don't know, some kind of arbitrage thing you could do there maybe. But
I might have to look further.
Yeah, so splex.gg/Archmage, and we just had today 50 tokens, and they sold out in a second. If you were there
in 1 second,
you didn't get one. So, because we're pretty much at capacity every time we add users and we're finding new things, we may not be able to offer any more than that. We're talking with Splex and we're negotiating amongst ourselves about the best way to move ahead, but for now that's the one and only way, unless you want to go to one of the scalpers outside the stadium, which is Hive Engine.
Right. And you mentioned that you were getting a fair bit of criticism from the community. What do you find is the most pivotal issue that comes to mind?
It must be hard to be a human player who's trying to learn the game, and you're doing your best to put out these hands that you own, and no matter what you do, there seems to be this automatic lightning fast player out there that just fields nearly the best hand every time, I can understand that would be a frustrating experience. And I'm not really sure I've got a lot to advise, except maybe to just look at what beats you and try to rent the cheapest cards of what beats you and try to start sort of learning from those losses of what the opposition's playing, because it's essentially what we're doing in a nutshell.
One more thing, what are you most bullish about in Splinterlands moving forwards?
Honestly, third-party services in general, whether that's Splinterlands TV, which is sort of an affiliated third-party service, or whether it's the other affiliated ones in the game, like Peak Monsters, Monster Market, Card Auctions, or them, or whether it's the tiny one that some, 14-year-old's making in his bedroom because he's discovered that Splinterlands has got an API and he can look at his last 50 battles, or she, or they. That's the most exciting thing for me, is the whole ecosystem of third party.
I think that's a great answer. There's so many fantastic projects coming out in line with Splinterlands, and I can't wait to see what more developers have to do and elevate this game to better places than we currently see it. Thanks so much, Almighty Melon. It's been awesome to have you here. For everyone who is interested, I will leave the Archmage Discord and the white paper in the video description below so you can get all the information that's required. Really appreciate you taking the time out of your day for the chat. I will be in touch with you soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Any last words before we finish up?
Not at all. Maybe just be patient, and if you're willing to tolerate the chaos of fastest finger first, then hopefully see you in a week or two.
Okay then.